Welcome to DJN TV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah. Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe with the one and only Ben Stowe, who is here tonight to share his lumberjack skills with us. Go.
You know,
No?
it was funny that you mentioned that in the Katie cast. That was a great interview, by the way. It was kind of fun to see you getting interviewed. I enjoyed that a little bit. And it was funny because I had to crop that close-up shot of me and post it because there were actually a few people that saw my previous post and said, that's not you.
That's not you, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, you're a geek. That's not you. I thought, boy, that's interesting that, whatever. But, now I will say I'm not good with a chainsaw. But
I mean, you still have all your fingers and your legs, and that's the important part of it.
And I do, in fact, own a chainsaw. So what do you know? And I'm going for the lumberjack look here.
Yeah,
so
I see that. You're really getting into this whole no shave 2020 thing. You're really going with it.
It's mostly just protest. It's sticking it to the man.
Yeah, they'll learn. Wow, they'll really learn. So tonight, gang, we're going to talk about having smaller sound systems. One of the things we were starting to see is a lot of DJs out there making some adjustments because one of the things we may not have are large events this summer. We've seen DJs recently who have been doing sound from a car outside a church so they could do their first dance after that, where all the guests were spread around or the family and friends were spread around the parking lot. Just a lot of things that are going to be smaller events. And Ben, I think this is a really kind of a different need per se than our traditional DJ systems.
Yeah, and I think those that adapt are going to succeed. We've talked about this, you and I, at length on the phone, and I think everybody's trying to figure out what the world's going to look like. And it'll be interesting to watch this video. I just gave a guy a link to one video we did 5 years ago because that topic is still relevant and the technology is still relevant. And so this video will undoubtedly be around for years and years too. It'll be really interesting to go back and look historically and see if we had any idea what the future was going to look like.
If we were right, or just another show that we'd laugh at later.
Well, and hopefully we can laugh at it. And there's not much to laugh at with the current situation, but I think sometimes you have to laugh or else you cry. And I'd be okay if people, I really don't care if people laugh at me anyway. I posted a picture of myself as a lumberjack, for crying out loud. What do I care? In fact, I have something else you can laugh at. As I was walking down to come to the show tonight, I walked into the bedroom and my wife said, "Don't you have a show tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." "Why?" She said, "Well, you just took off your pants." I said, "They're only going to see me from the waist up." So now I just changed. Okay, I am wearing pants.
Yes, wearing some
put
sort
on
of
different pants, but anyway. So you know what? There, you can laugh at that. Anyway, I know there are some states that don't have shelter-in-place orders. Minnesota, we may have ours lifted this weekend. I know that there are DJs that are actually doing weddings in May, and I think that's going to be certainly the exception and not the rule. And I think it will be some months before we have large events again. And I think that the scale of the size of the event is going to determine the time. I see that Major League Baseball is looking to hopefully hold games in June, and with what conditions and restrictions we don't know. So I think it's wise to plan. I think it's wise to look for these ways to adapt, like you say, John. But it's possible that weddings of 100 people maybe won't be so far on the horizon. It's possible they will. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why we want to have that discussion, because in some of the applications that we're seeing right now, that some of the smaller weddings where they have had 10, 12, 15 people, they're still doing some music. But I think the music needs change from the standpoint that when I'm doing a wedding for 200 people and I want to have a dance floor of people packed, and I want to have a good solid sound on a dance floor, a lot of the things that I'm seeing DJs do, whether it's a street, where they're trying to have sound up and down a street, or filling the front yard or the backyard, right. It's more of having a presence, not a chest pounding presence, but having a musical presence that sounds better than the boombox that they'd bring in or bring outside from the house.
Yeah, and there are lots of DJs doing innovative things. Shout out to my friend Ryan out in California. I say friend like I only have one. My only friend.
The only one here. Yeah.
Shout out to my friend Ryan, who's I don't want to give away his trade secrets here. I don't think I am. But he's doing neighborhood parties with bubble machines and that sort of thing, and everybody's kind of staying in their area and they're having some success. He's having a lot of success actually. From a geek standpoint, it's certainly changing the metrics. When people say, "Well, how many people will this speaker cover?" I'm like, well, let's see. Everybody's 6 feet apart in 2 dimensions. 6 feet by 6 feet is
exactly.
You got to figure air loss. So we've got okay.
And temperature plays a role. Temperature. We got to remember your temperature.
It's a different number for sure. Yeah, we got to think about all these things: humidity, temperature,
yeah.
but. So again, I think it's wise to be adaptable to those things. I think that we will see private events like weddings and things come back much sooner than we will large scale events. I think it'll be, they're talking about, nobody really knows about the 2020 Olympics, which now are the 2021 Olympics, right? And on my side of the industry, we're wondering, when is it okay to put 10,000 people in an arena or 100,000 people in a stadium, as opposed to 100 people or a couple hundred people in a ball. And again, I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
isn't anybody that knows. And in fact, there's global disagreement here. There are, like I said, there are states that have no shelter-in-place order. There are states and countries that have very, very tight restrictions. There's Sweden that doesn't. And nobody really. So again, it'd be interesting to see how this video ages. So I think what we're planning for is the possibility, and I think you're right. Some people, out of an abundance of caution, might just elect to do those types of events instead of a traditional reception. In fact, you could be pioneering something new that will change the way the world works. So. Anyway, enough of my. We may all have new fashion wear to wear to these things, like this.
Exactly, and that looks pretty awesome. You got to admit that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. You know what? I did that just because it was a gift from my other friend. I have two.
Wow.
And he is a viewer, so I had to showcase this a little bit. So
yeah, that's really nice.
Made the rest of the family really jealous. And my mother.
You're the only one that's safe. The rest of them, you didn't get a mask for them, so they're all.
No, my mother-in-law made masks for all of us, but they're nice. They're like flower prints and stuff like that. I mean, they're not rocking stormtroopers, and I am first order troopers to be more specific. Speaking of which. I'm just stalling, as you can tell, trying to drag this out as long as I can before we get into actual substance and technology. Since we're making this historical, record here. Speaking of which, so next Tuesday, there's a possibility that our shelter-in-place order will be lifted.
Yes,
and we can go back to work and those kinds of things, but I will not. And I would love to tell you this is out of a sense of moral responsibility and that sort of thing, and there's all that. But the truth is, Disney Plus is going to have the documentary on the making of The Mandalorian, and I'm going to be parked on my couch watching it. So
the important things.
The truly important thing is I'm going to be on my.
So as long as we go there, this is a discussion we were having earlier in the day.
My attempt at humor, viewers. I'm sorry.
No, this is
like I said, if you don't laugh, you cry. So
the Mandalorian 2 is supposed to come out in October. Do you know? Have you heard through the grapevine or anything? Have they already shot it, or is it something that they were going to be shooting and wrapping up this spring? Because there's talk that this is the time they'd be recording fall shows, and there's no recording going on, obviously.
I know they shot a lot of it. At least I believe I read that they shot a lot of it. So I guess I don't know for sure, but I would have to believe that if it's coming out in October, it's probably been shot and is in post-production right now.
And they're working on it. Yeah. Cause it's going to be a long fall if we don't get to see any of it.
Boy, I tell you what, that there are some things I just can't.
I cringe to think about it. Just cringe.
Can't do it.
Thank you guys. We got a lot of people with us tonight out on Facebook and on YouTube.
They'd like us to stop talking
Storm,
about
Neil, Freddie, Mike is with us there. Jerry, David, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. So Tonight's topic is doing the sound system for weddings that might be a little bit smaller than we're used to.
Or configured differently.
Or configured differently. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
That's a better way of saying it. I think if we, because we kicked around a couple scenarios. One is that it's smaller and you're, DJing from a car per se, but another is that people are spread out over a 200 by 200 area, which is substantially bigger than what you would do in a hotel ballroom usually. Most dance floors are maybe 40 by 40.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to cut, and again, you start spacing people out 6 feet apart in two axes, and you start compensating for air loss and inverse square law and those kinds of things, you might need a lot more firepower. Interesting lesson in acoustics going on in my neighborhood right now. Somebody is outside practicing trumpet, probably because their parents kicked them out. First nice day. This show almost got canceled on account of weather. It's like 60 degrees
it's beautiful
outside.
out there,
I almost said, sorry, can't do it. I got to be outside. Get my vitamin D back up. So I think if you're DJing from a car, a couple things that are coming out in the market that are very timely maybe would be something like the Prime Go. And my first thought, I got to be honest, and I'm not always a technology visionary. That's a hard thing for me to admit. But my first thought when they were coming out with a battery-powered DJ controllers, I thought, who in the world needs this?
I was right there with you on that one.
Yeah. Well, and P.S., it's probably the best-selling controller we have right now. Go figure. Mm-hmm. But there you have it. So you take a battery-powered controller and a battery-powered laptop, and you could run for probably a couple hours from your car. Now, if you factor in an inverter from your car, where you're taking that DC voltage from your car and converting it to usable AC voltage, you could run a couple of small speakers, and you could run this stuff very comfortably. We've done previous shows where we look at the crest factor and how much power is actually being consumed by a loudspeaker, and we learned that it's not nearly as much as one might think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So a couple 100-watt inverter, and you could have a pretty nice little party in that area, particularly if those things are battery powered.
Certainly.
And of course, there's battery powered speakers. Maui 5 Go, even the little JBL Eon 1 Compact, great little speaker, bang for the buck. So I think that's one way we could certainly, see this being done. And again, the Prime Go, it's a great candidate. So if you don't have yours on order yet, well, you just best be getting a hold of us and right quick. The Prime 2s did come in; those are in and shipping. So
nice.
Now we're just waiting on the Prime Goes. There are other scenarios. We've done some Wi-Fi based systems for churches with outdoor antennas where people can then sit in their cars and can tune in from their smartphones. There are also traditional FM transmitters. We've got a fairly low power one, a couple milliwatt. I don't remember what it is exactly, but has a range of maybe 200 feet. And they're out of stock right now, of course. But that's something you might want to get on the waiting list. It'll be probably a month at least before we have more, at least. And we're starting to see that perfect storm that you and I talked about months ago, where even now as the, economy is starting to open back up, we're paying for the fact that the factories in Asia were closed. So there's beginning to be serious disruptions in the supply chain, and things are no longer in stock. So,
when do you expect some of that to alleviate?
Well, everybody kind of knows. It's funny because some manufacturers seem to forget that there's the Chinese New Year, which is basically a month of shutdown, and it happens every year. So how it catches them by surprise, I don't understand. But this year, of course, having that Chinese New Year extended for a month plus certainly was a surprise to a lot of people. Nobody was prepared, to be without inventory for an additional 4 to 6 weeks. So I think we're going to start to see that catch up a little bit, maybe, May, June. It depends on the product and it depends on the country. The factories in China are open again and they've been cranking stuff out and we're starting to catch up on some of that. But, we're a bit behind with Malaysia and some of the other countries. So, and I think it's going to depend on the product. Other companies simply were not prepared for the volume, Black Magic, for example, they've done a pretty good job of keeping up. But we've sold more Black Magic in the last 2 weeks than we have in the last 2 years. I think.
Sure, I believe that.
Yeah. So, if you're a company that makes FM transmitters and you sell, I don't know, one a year, I mean, who buys those things? And all of a sudden 300 million people want one,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the real numbers are, but we're getting emails and calls from other countries. It's almost, people are saying, if you've got one, I'll pay any price. And we're like, well, we don't. So it doesn't matter. Save your money.
Wow.
And by the way, we have not raised prices. I will say that. We have not raised prices. So there.
It's just interesting what the demand of how it's changed from one products to other products during this time frame. And the number of people everyone's looking for that webcam. Everybody's looking for that interface. Everybody's looking for that. Just kind of astounding.
Yeah, and there are certainly things, like the Blackmagic Mini recorder comes to mind, or the ATM Mini, or other things like that, where people have said, "I'm looking around to find one in stock," and I said, "You're not going to."
No.
The fastest way to get one is to just place an order and get your name in line. And some people say, "Well, you're just trying to take an order." I say, "No, do what you want." And 2 weeks later, they'll write back, "Do you have them yet?" I say, "No, 100 came in while you were waiting for something to come in, and your name wasn't on the list." So, "No, we still don't have one for you, but you would have got one last week." So, and obviously we hate back orders. I don't like back orders. Nobody likes back orders. We want to ship the stuff to you. We want you to have it. For one, it's less work. It's more work to keep track of a back order.
Mm-hmm.
If we have your order and if you've paid for that order, we owe you that money until you have that product. So there's an accounting situation, and then there's, an ethical and a moral one, to just try to get those things to you as quickly as we can. So believe me, if we had the opportunity to just have it on hand, we would. But that being the case, the fastest way to get one of these things is to just put your name on it. And, and in many cases, we're not charging you until it ships. Because that actually solves some of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
So you just say, "Hey, I want this." When they come in, we'll call you and say they're in. Would you still like it? Yes, great. If you say no, the next person in line is just thrilled.
happy.
There is always a line right now. That being the case,
well, we can. Some of that technology we'll talk about as a possible addition to.
Yeah, like streaming.
Streaming, exactly, because I think that's going to be part of, and again, we're seeing some DJs who are offering that smaller sound system, that system that's more flexible in different locations, whether it's covering a backyard, covering the whatever, and then streaming for a mobile streaming studio. So I don't know which direction you want to go, if we want to talk more with sound systems or if we want to get into kind of a mobile streaming idea of what kind of things we need for that.
It's your channel. We did just have a viewer question on the ETA of the Mini Pro, the ATM Mini Pro from Blackmagic, and last I heard is about 6 weeks. So yeah, now that's a new product, so double whammy. Minis have been coming in and going out fairly regularly. So
what is a big difference? Are you familiar with the difference between the Mini and the Mini Pro?
Yeah, there's a few more features on the Mini Pro, and it has an RJ45 jack that you can connect to your computer for streaming. And it's about twice the price. Yeah,
there was a couple of small things, and when you looked at it, it's like, oh, that would be nice. But
yeah, and the Roland VR1 HD, which we had a rockin' special on, and still have a good price on. But those are now starting to come in. They're starting to trickle in. And I do mean trickle. I don't think Roland was, again, they were simply not prepared for the demand. But they're coming in and we're shipping them out. So it's light at the end of the tunnel.
So for someone who's going to be...
And all of the gig bar moves have shipped.
Oh, so, finally.
Yes.
They've made it through the process.
The last 3 pallets of those came in today. So
excellent.
If you have a gig bar move on order with us, you should have been contacted. Just confirming that you didn't move or that your address didn't change. Some people had them being shipped to work addresses, and now that's not, you don't want them there. So if you haven't seen that message, sorry, just a little PSA here, John. If you haven't seen that message, check your junk folder or proactively message us, because believe me, we're trying to reach all of you. So anyway, that's just good news that they shipped.
So let's however we're going to cover the area. Say we're going to put together a fictitious event. We're going to be doing a wedding. We're going to be on Lake Bemidji in the backyard of someone's house on the lakeside. They've got a tent for about 25 guests, and they want to have a sound experience for that because they're going to do ceremony and they're going to have kind of a cocktail-y backyard event. But they also want to be able to broadcast that event via Zoom, and we're not going to worry about the Zoom part. We'll just that a streaming software like Zoom. They want to broadcast that to remote family. DJ's got his gear. What's he going to need to be able to do that at a high level to be able to broadcast that that to those guests that can't make it?
It depends.
Yeah.
All right. Such an unsatisfying answer, right? Wasn't that you?
Exactly. It's one of the most unsatisfying answers that anyone can give is, it depends.
What it depends on is what you're streaming from. And I don't mean your controller. That's kind of a given. I mean the other apparatus, as in, is it a laptop? Is it a phone? Is it a tablet? If it's a phone, which phone? And so there are a variety of things that are out there. We are carefully, well, no, we're not hoarding because we're selling them, but we are down to a small handful of the PreSonus i2 interface, which has a USB connection, works great on Mac or PC, also has a lightning cable, and seems to work for the things that people have done for it on iPhone and iPad. Now, I want to clarify, we haven't tested this on every software. We just know that it shows up in the phone as an audio device. And again, seems to work in the things we've tested it for.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But to give you, I mean, there were 303 of these available a few days ago, and now we have less than 10.
Oh, goodness.
And yeah, and it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we see more. Oh, gosh. I mean, there was another, I looked at a PreSonus factory report. And they said, yeah, we've got 3,000 of these, the Audio Box 96, whatever it is. We've got 3,600 of these. And I said, great, I'll take this many. And they said, oh, they're all gone now. I'm like, it was an hour. So,
goodness.
That being said, because it is somewhat of an individual thing, there are these options, and I would encourage people to reach out to us. One of the things that we did is we made and remade and revised, and with the help of your very own Howie Darkstar, a RCA to TRRS cable, which uses the CTIA standard to connect to a phone or a tablet. It does work with the newer Lightning iPhones as long as you have a dongle. Mm-hmm. Found that some of the aftermarket dongles don't work. That's on the dongle. But, you know, it worked with all the Apple ones and the Belkin ones and the other ones that we tested seemed to work just fine. So that's a quick and easy way to take an output of your controller, get it into your phone, and off you go.
And what that would give you then is, again, with the phone, you've got it on a tripod, what have you, towards the action. You're going to be able to capture all the sound from your board and your microphones from your board. So really, it would be a full experience, and it would sound you would have a pretty good quality sound going out.
Yeah, it's a direct feed right from the board. So you're not picking up all the ambient sound and, you know, depending on the phone's microphones, which are, you know, kind of contoured for directionality and that sort of thing. So it's a low cost and readily available solution. That's why we did it. Like I said, we basically designed this thing, tested it, retested it, retested it, made them, sent them out. We've since improved the design, so we sent out replacements to everybody.
That's what Freddie's talking about here on Facebook. That he's got a new one in the mail today.
Yeah, we and we've had a lot of people who wrote back and said, it's the first one you sent's working great, and we said, well, try them both and keep which one you like better. Mm-hmm. Other people though identified it, and again, there's so many variances in controllers and phones and software. And so, we went back to the drawing board when we got some feedback from people. We said, that's interesting. We're getting a lot of people, overwhelming number of people saying, I sound great, but we're getting some people that are going, well, but I've got this thing going on. And so we said, let's tweak it. Now we get, a little time, we'll make it a little better. So we
sure.
did. Freddie, you have to let us know which one you like better, I guess.
Yeah.
Keep the one you like better. Mm-hmm. There's other options. We've got a inexpensive USB interface I think the part number is the US-32 from Tascam. It's a discontinued piece, but I think we've got the last 50. So there's a USB audio interface for like $49 or something like that. Very low cost USB interface, good for a computer. Again, to take that direct audio into another computer for streaming. Some people have been able to route the audio from within the computer. I don't really recommend that. I think, if you're doing it and it's working, awesome. But if you're asking the computer that you're playing all your music from and you're DJing from to also be the computer that then handles your audio and video stream, you're just asking a lot out of that machine. And at some point you could overtax the machine and it goes down and the music stops. So I would recommend 2 devices, one computer for DJing, second device, computer, tablet, phone for streaming.
And to give a little support for that is live streaming Saturday night, doing a lot of different captures and different things. And we had picked up one of the new Mac Pro, basically the top of the line unit with all the horsepower and all the bells and whistles. We were doing so much with that, multitasking with it. I wasn't using it as a DJ unit, just the video streaming side. The power supply that comes with the unit could not keep up with it. You could just watch the little thing go to. So in our 2-hour live stream, we were down to 75% when we ended, and that was just because of all the things that we're asking that computer. And I wasn't including asking it to DJ. It was just
right.
that. So yeah, there's definitely those are situations that it's best to have 2 rather than have 1 and ask it to do too much.
Yeah, so that's my 2 cents. Grab one of our cables for like $39. Grab one of those little Tascam interfaces for $50. The Personas interfaces, while supplies last, again, they're not discontinued. They just can't make them fast enough. We have more coming in a few weeks, but we're going to be out for a few weeks because I think the last couple that we have will be gone tomorrow without any doubt.
Goodness.
There are not a lot of bright spots right now, but if there was a bright spot, it's streaming gear, you know. Obviously, our sales are nowhere near what they normally would be. And we understand when our customers are hurting, we're going to be hurting, and we are truly all in this thing together, maybe not in the same, boat, but we're in the same water. So believe me, if you're watching and you're thinking life's not ideal, we get it. As I said to another friend of mine tonight, I think we're all going through a range of emotions on this, right? But he's feeling a little bit bummed out. And I said, misery loves company and you've got a lot of it. So
a lot of misery or a lot of company. Which one are you trying to say?
Well, both. There's a lot of misery to go around, but again, it's encouraging to see that, in some parts, maybe we're starting to get a handle on this thing a little bit. I think there's a bit of a race to run yet. But I don't know if you saw that the Oxford University vaccine seems to be very well. They haven't gone to human clinical trials, but their trials with the monkeys seems to have passed with flying colors, and they're a close analog, to us, in the way our immune systems work. So I remain the optimist. I do. We've been through so many things over the course of history. And, we're so far better prepared than we've ever been. Never has humanity had as much knowledge, as much understanding. Remember, people keep talking about the 1918 flu. We didn't even know what a virus was.
Exactly, yes.
Nobody knew what RNA was, ribonucleic acid. Yes, I know. Don't ask. I'm a multi-talented geek. But anyway.
Well, the funny thing about that, what was the first recommendation when it came to the 1918 the flu? To not do was not to spit on the ground. That was the early thing, and I actually remember my grandfather talking about that as a child. That spitting is bad because you're going to make other people sick, and it never registered to me. We were actually talking about this as a family the other day. It's like, you remember when Grandpa used to say that? Yeah, because he came out of that time. Don't spit because you make people sick.
Again, nobody understood, what RNA was back then. Nobody understood what a virus was. They were still using leeches and bloodletting. That was medicine.
Oh, we still do that in Minnesota, but that's during fishing season.
That's fishing season, but But now, I mean, we had a genetic sequence of this thing, weeks after it was discovered. So again, I remain the optimist. I think this is a smart plan, John, to look for ways to better serve our clients, to adapt to, the changes. But yeah, I think, as a species, we're going to put this thing in the rearview mirror somehow, some way, so.
So a couple of things, and then we'll wrap things up here in just a few minutes. Back to our Lake Bemidji party. We're in the backyard there. What would you recommend me using? I'm going to give you a couple of different options and such. I've got my Evolve 50s. Would that be a better option for covering the backyard, or would I be better off using my ELX 200s? The 10. We've talked about having a 10 over the 12. Nice, portable, quick. Which one is going to give me better coverage across that backyard?
It depends.
Oh, no. You know what Lake Bemidji's like. I know what Lake Bemidji's like. So we've got our visual.
The Evolve is going to have wider coverage, and the ELX has the possibility of longer coverage.
Okay.
And the reason it has the possibility of longer coverage is we can get it up higher and we can tilt it down, and that's going to help. The Evolve, some people will raise up that sub or put it on another sub or something like that to get a little more height. The Evolve is really, well designed for what it's used for, what it's designed for. And so depending on how that layout in the backyard is, the Evolve may sound fantastic. Particularly if you have wider coverage, which could be the case with people not being within 6 feet, whatever, so they're spread out. But I think either system is gonna do the job. I think the ELX 200, again, being able to get it up, tilt it down a little bit, it's going to carry a little bit further. So I don't know that I would, and I'll tell you this, it might sound crazy coming from a guy who sells gear, but probably whichever one you have, if you only have one choice, it's going to do the job. I think the same PA that we're using in a ballroom is probably going to suffice in these environments. A couple things to remember, though. One is inverse square law, that we're going to lose 6 decibels every time you double the distance from that speaker. So, we have to cover this area somehow. And 2 is inverse square law, because we only lose 6 dB when you double the distance from the speaker. So from 200 feet at the end of our party to the next 200 feet, 400 feet away, we're only losing 6 more dB.
And that's now in the neighbor's yard. Or
you may have more guests than you intend.
Hey, okay, so we're at the lake. It's a still evening.
And when you put water in there,
it's
going to go right across the lake.
The people on the other side are having a party too. So now we have a wedding party that's now our 45 people and those 40 people on the other side of the lake that are.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed and I hope that we get to do again this summer is, and of course, generally when I'm running sound, it's for, Grammy winners or Hall of Famers or, whatever, right? And that's awesome. I love working with them because they're so talented. You just kind of almost along for the ride with them, And so one of the things I like to do is we have a local music festival, as part of our water carnival. That's kind of our big 4th of July thing here, small town America. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly regional bands, bands that might travel with their own small PA, that sort of thing. Don't typically have a sound engineer. Maybe as somebody in the band just adjusts things before the show and then goes on stage and plays. So when they work with us, it's really a very different dynamic. They're super excited to be working with us. We have a great ability to really affect their sound. Whereas, with a Grammy winner, you're just trying really hard not to screw it up. They're clearly better than you are. You know what I mean? Like, we're just like, hey, my job is to protect this person's career. But with these, regional bands, they're talented musicians, but this is such a leap forward for them in terms of sound. They're having the time of their life being on this great PA with great engineers. They're just like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And so I love that. I love being able to share my talent with their talent, and we could come together and do something really cool. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the moral of this story, though, is it's down on the lakefront. And a lot of my friends that live on the other side of the lake, they know we're running the sound. So I'll get texts all night because they can hear it very clearly across the lake, very crystal clear. I'll get texts all night with requests to give to the band. So, hey, see if they'll play, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm okay. I'll mention it,
I'll get right on that one.
No, because sometimes the bands will, these are usually like party bands, and I'll get on the, like we have little radios, and I'll get on the radio, or I'll send a text message because we have a guy at Monitor World. Yeah, these bands also have monitor engineers, and they think that is fantastic because they're not even used to having a front of house guy, let alone a dedicated monitor engineer. And then we'll have a stagehand up there too, just in case something weird goes on, mic fails or whatever. I'll just radio the stagehand and say, hey, somebody wants to hear Jesse's Girl or whatever, and they're like, all right, yeah, they're going to take a break, and I'll tell them, So, however, got to say this: when I work an arena, or even a casino or something like that with a national act, those shows are 75 minutes. Maybe 90 minutes. And if we have a couple acts, maybe it's 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, man, they go from like 9 to 1 or 2. They're going 4 or 5 hours. So hats off to the party bands because it's exhausting. I'm not ready for a 4-hour set. I kind of want to go back to my Grammy winners, But I do have a great time. Anyway, yes, okay. So it's going to carry across the water. So kind of make sure your neighbors are in the deal here. Make sure they're aware of what's going down, and hopefully they're wanting to have a good time too. So
let's
if not, just turn it up so you can't hear them complain.
So you can't hear complain. Yeah. Then when the officer comes, what? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. The music's too.
Hey, we have it from a officer of the law from our show 2 weeks ago that as long as we play good music,
we're good to go. Yeah, that's okay. True. That we did have that. The last area I want to talk about just a little bit is, again, back to our hypothetical event. We're in the backyard. It's a bigger backyard on the lake. If we're going to get for wireless microphone system, we have let's just use one that most of us know. EVs are the RE system, the RE3 system.
RE3,
yep. Will the little whip mics be able to go and give me that so I could set up by the house and be able to walk down, 100 feet plus to the lake and then walk over to the other corner of the property that's now, 200 feet away and give me good coverage? Or is it something that we should invest in the paddles to be able to get better coverage across the whole yard?
Boy, lots of it depends moments. And viewers, if you hung in there for 40 minutes with us so far, thank goodness, here comes the juiciest nerd content of the night. So, first and foremost, the RE3 ships with half-wave antennas, which will give you about 3 dB more gain than a quarter-wave antenna. So you're up one right there. 2, the RE3 has switchable power if you're in the 5H or 5L band between 10 milliwatt and 50 milliwatt. It's only 20 milliwatt if you're in the 6M band, but that's a different show because that has to do with it being positioned in the duplex gap. So just forget about that for now. So 50 milliwatts is a ton of power. And the reason it's switchable down to 10 milliwatts is indoors, 50 milliwatt might be too much power.
Okay.
And you've got this 90-degree polarization of a radio wave, which is the electric component and the magnetic component. And so as this thing is bouncing around the room, it can collide with itself and it can create situations like multipath nulls. So that's why, that's why we typically tell people to position your antennas at 90 degrees from each other. These are your stick antennas like this.
Yep.
Because again, as this wave that is 90 degrees polarized within itself of the electrical and the magnetic properties is bouncing around the room, that wave is going to change. And these antennas are picking up in largely a donut-shaped pattern. They don't pick up very much. Here, let's do this. Here's my antenna. Picks up this way, not so much this way.
Oh, okay.
So if I have it this way, it's coming out this way. And by having this one this way, I've got now kind of a crossing of patterns. Anyway, so what's that have to do with distance? Well, one, understanding how your antennas work. So having them pointed in a way that's going to give them the best fighting chance. 2, 50 milliwatts of power is great outdoors because there's not much for it to bounce off of and create multipaths. So probably that's what I would use out there. However, here's the big kicker. How far will it go? People ask me that all the time. No way I can tell you. Because what it comes down to basically signal to noise. Okay, you have a carrier signal that your audio is modulated onto, and that's what you're propagating. That's what you're sending from your microphone. If you're on top of a really high RF noise floor, you have a lot of TV and things in the area, your distance won't be very far at all. So it's going to be very environmental. On a really good, clean channel, 200 feet line of sight with half-wave antennas is no issue whatsoever. Not a problem.
at
Now,
at 50 instead of the 10.
even at 10, you could probably go 200 feet.
Okay.
But it comes down to, we think about it really works very, very similar to audio. We measure antenna strength in dB. So what I gain from going to 10 milliwatt to 50 milliwatt is not 5 times anything, because there's that logarithmic relationship between power and dB gain. But in this case, for distance, more is better. But you'd be surprised at 10 milliwatts on a really clear channel. You probably could go 200 feet. Now, a couple key things about paddles. The paddles are directionalized, so they will pick up more in the direction you point them and less off. And they have an acceptance angle of about 120 degrees. So, kind of point them in the direction of where you want to go, and you're going to gain substantial amount of increase. They're more sensitive, right? There's no such thing as it going out there and getting the signal. The antenna's not doing that. It's just more sensitive to the energy that's being radiated towards it in that way. So probably said a lot of things that have viewers confused, and you've got a question, but I'll just summarize real quick before the question by saying, if I was going 200 feet anywhere under any circumstance, I would absolutely use a paddle.
Okay. So we're going to use this paddle. We're going to set the paddle up behind me, and it's going to be shooting in essence over me, over the yard.
Yep.
120 degree would cover the yard pretty well. Now, there's this evil public broadcasting TV station that's over there just a little bit behind where the paddle is set. Will it, because of it being directional, will that give me better cancellation and less interference than if I'm just using that half wave antenna? Will the paddle?
Let me make sure I understand you correctly. So is the TV station behind you?
Yes, it's behind me and behind the paddle.
Then yes, absolutely. It will pick up less because with your stick antenna, it's picking up the same in all directions. So TV station, same. Microphone, same. So that noise floor is going to be higher, and that's going to compromise your range. Again, people say, why can I only go 5 feet with this microphone? What a piece of garbage. Well, I mean, there are some microphones that are garbage, but the RE3 is not one of them. It's a great mic, and it could absolutely fail at 5 feet if you kneecap it, by putting it on top of a high RF noise floor TV station. So yeah, that would absolutely help because you don't have as much gain coming from that direction as you do from that direction. And rest assured, that TV station is much more powerful.
By far.
So all the help you can give it is great. I've done some RF classes. In fact, I did this at the one I did for you in Vegas, where I had antennas, and we tried that a little bit, and turn it around. Let's see what happens, so.
Excellent. Is there a difference in the belt pack and the handheld in that the RE3 line as far as that 10 and 50 switching capability?
No difference in power, but let me tell you what there is a difference in. You use a handheld, it's up here. And so is your antenna's up here, okay? That's your transmit antenna. Line of sight is critically important, okay? That's another reason paddles are great is you can get them up high on a stand. If your stick antennas are down here and they got to go through all these walking bags of salt water out there, even spaced 6 feet apart, they're going to start to absorb some of that sound or radio wave, excuse me. And by the way, metal is another big no-no. If you have even metal like a chain link fence, which you can see through, the holes in that fence are smaller than a UHF wavelength and the radio waves aren't going through them. So don't put metal, even a fence, between your two antennas. So handheld antenna is up here, line of sight, which is good.
Better.
Belt back antenna is where?
On my belt. Trick question?
I just want to see if you knew where you were.
Good. I was thinking, if this is the wrong answer, I'm in trouble tonight.
Wrong!
Oh, I was doing so well.
Well, it depends on who's using them.
There is that, yes, because we have had people who didn't have a belt who were wearing an
bra
outfit.
straps are great. Yeah. For theater performers and stuff, because it's higher. It's up higher. Bra straps are amazing. However, that leads to another problem. When they're in wardrobe like that.
That's in the way.
Well, yeah. And the cloth isn't a problem, but skin is. So we want to try to keep the antenna isolated from skin. And even if there's a shirt between the antenna and the skin, performers that sweat, which a lot of them do,
make a
Now that's, there's a lot of, ions and electrolytes and things in sweat. It becomes fairly decent conductor, and it will cause, you can just watch the signal strength of that pack go down. Just try it sometime. Do it for yourself. A little experiment. Take your pack and your wireless receiver, and take your pack and take the antenna and just push it up tight against your bare skin. Put it on your body. Put your body between the radio and push the antenna up against your skin. Just you'll watch that thing just go.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, you can lose 20, 30 dB sometimes. So so anyway, that coupled with the fact that it's not as high and it has to go through other bodies, that can be a big deal. So yeah, if I was using a body pack, and first, again, let me reiterate, if I was going 200 feet, no matter what the circumstance, I would be using a paddle. Yes. If I was using a body pack and I was going 200 feet, you bet I'd be using a paddle. There's no way I'd try it without a paddle.
Yeah, good to know. Dave was asking the difference between a quarter wave and a half wave, and then kind of a secondary is if you have one or the other, can you use the other one? I.e., if you had a quarter wave could you upgrade to a half wave without having? So, tell us the difference between the two, though, for those who don't know.
So first thing we have to think about is the name quarter wave and half wave, and we're talking about a wavelength. Okay, so if we take the speed of light, which is approximately 300 million meters per second, or what would that be, 928 million feet per second, or 186,000 miles per second. I did the math in my head, might be wrong. Anyway, I know it's about 300 million meters per second. So, and it's 3.28 feet per meter. So 300 million being 900. Anyway, it's a lot of feet.
It's a lot of feet.
So stick to meters. It's easier to manage, or 186,000 miles per second. But I don't like to use miles because meters is a lot more like what we deal with in the real world. We don't often quantify miles, in walking out something. And so if we think about that, that's going to tell us what the length of the wave is. And it's going to change by frequency because it's the speed of light divided by the frequency. So we can approximate it at somewhere in 2 feet, but it's going to change based on frequency. So first thing to know is the antennas are tuned to a frequency or a frequency range. So you want to get the right antenna for your range. Don't just go grab another antenna and stick it on there. Any antenna is better than no antenna in a pinch, but the right antenna is the best antenna. And so the second thing we would know about this is that a half wave antenna is going to be twice as long as a quarter wave antenna. So a quarter wave antenna is, we'll call it about 6 inches. A half wave antenna is going to be a foot. So yes, you can absolutely upgrade your quarter waves to a half wave. There's no magic to that. Certainly feel free to reach out. We can find the right antenna for you. And even though they're only like $29 right now, those sales matter. So we'll take them. All sales matter, but right now, especially all sales matter. And the same thing with LPAs, the log periodic antennas, those are generally more broadband. They tend to be somewhere between 470 and 900 megahertz, and that sort of thing. And you don't need to necessarily match them. I like to, if I'm going to replace one antenna, I'm going to replace them both because the system's operating on some form of diversity, whether it's switching diversity, true diversity, audio diversity. It's operating on some kind of diversity. But you could just do one half wave and one quarter wave, and it's better than nothing.
Sure. Excellent. Ben, I think it's time we got to wrap things up for tonight. So thank you much. We went a little more in depth in a couple of areas, but I think we had some really good information there for folks who are going to be possibly having to be a little more creative when it comes to events this summer.
Well, it's been said, and we've done a lot of shows on wireless. And I guess if you had any doubts, now I'm kind of a radio nerd. So if you need help with your wireless, I'm your guy.
Just as long as you don't call next Tuesday night when they're having the making of the Mandalorian.
Yep, making of the Mandalorian. No, it's not gonna happen. I'll tough it out, and I'll be on the show. So I think it actually comes out the 4th, May 4th, of course, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And actually, I know it does. And so let me just double check the calendar. I think the 3rd is Sunday, right?
Friday's 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
I don't even know what month it is anymore. Does anybody know? Seriously.
Does anybody know what time it is?
I'm so glad we do this show just because it helps me it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, yeah, exactly.
I don't know what day it was. So the 4th is Monday. So I could pretty much binge watch those straight through the day, and I'll be good for Tuesday.
You'll be so hyped up on Mandalorian.
I look like a.
It'd be like, oh, tonight's topic will be Star Wars.
Yeah,
We could do
shouldn't
that one.
be? Star Wars and wireless. Why not?
It'll work well, wonderfully. Hey, gang, thank you for being with us. We're going to be back in about 10 minutes. Jay and Brian are on deck and ready to go, and we'll have some fun talking about their favorite DIY projects. Ben, thanks again for your time tonight.